On the night of December 6, 1991, a small yogurt shop in Austin, Texas, became the scene of a horrific crime, one that would shake a city to its core and leave a case that, more than 30 years later, still cries out for justice. Welcome to True Crimes AI. Tonight, we delve into the heartbreaking and unresolved mystery of the Austin yogurt shop murders. In the early 90s, Austin was seen as a safe haven, a city where violent crime, especially involving multiple victims, was a rarity. Businesses like frozen yogurt shops were community hubs, safe spaces for families and the young people who worked there. One such place was I Can't Believe It's Yogurt, located in a bustling part of Northwest Austin, surrounded by homes, schools, and other local businesses. It was the kind of spot everyone knew, a familiar and friendly landmark. On the evening of December 6th, 4 teenage girls were working the closing shift, just like any other Friday night. But this night would be different. This was the night none of them would make it home. The 4 young women at the heart of this tragedy were Jennifer Harbison, 17, her younger sister Sarah, who was 15. Their friend Eliza Thomas, also 17, and the youngest of the group, 13-year-old Amy Ayers. 2 of the girls weren't even scheduled to work that night. They had simply stayed late to hang out and help their friends close up the shop. By all accounts, it was a completely ordinary evening, filled with the usual teenage chatter and end-of-week excitement. But as the clock ticked past closing time, a sense of unease began to creep in for their waiting families at around 11:30 p.m. The night was shattered by an emergency call. A fire had broken out at the yogurt shop. When firefighters arrived, they were met with a scene of chaos. Flames engulfed the small building, and smoke billowed into the night sky. As they battled the blaze, they made a discovery that would haunt the city for decades. In the back of the store, they found the bodies of all 4 girls. It was immediately clear this was no accident. The fire had been set deliberately, a brutal final act in an unthinkable crime. Investigators descended on the scene, and the grim reality of what happened began to take shape. This was not just an arson. It was a complex and violent quadruple homicide. They quickly determined that the fire was a calculated attempt to destroy evidence. The cash register was empty, indicating robbery was a motive. The victims had been restrained, and a firearm had been used. The sheer brutality of the scene suggested that more than one person was involved. However, the arsonist's plan had been devastatingly effective. The intense heat and water damage had compromised or completely destroyed much of the physical evidence, creating a monumental challenge for the investigation from the very beginning. The Austin Police Department, alongside state and federal agencies, launched one of the largest and most intensive investigations in Texas history. It was a massive undertaking. Detectives conducted hundreds of interviews, chasing down every possible lead. They meticulously reconstructed the crime scene, hoping to uncover any missed clues. The case captured national media attention, its horror resonating far beyond Austin. Witnesses came forward, reporting they had seen suspicious men near the shopping center that night. But the descriptions were vague and often conflicted, leading investigators down a series of frustrating dead ends. 1 year turned into 2, then 5, and still no arrests were made. The case and the city's hope for answers grew cold. Then, in 1999, 8 long years after the murders, there was a dramatic breakthrough. The investigation, which had seemed dormant, roared back to life with the arrests of 4 young men: Michael Scott, Robert Springsteen, Chris Ochoa, and Mark Allen. The city held its breath as confessions were reportedly obtained from Ochoa and Springsteen. It seemed that justice was finally within reach, and the families of the 4 girls might finally get the closure they so desperately deserved. But the sense of resolution was short-lived. As the case against the 4 men began to unravel almost as quickly as it had come together, The confessions, which were the cornerstone of the prosecution's case, came under intense scrutiny. Defense attorneys argued that their clients had been coerced, worn down by hours of grueling interrogations until they gave false statements. As the legal battle raged, advancements in forensic science offered a new way to examine the evidence. DNA technology had evolved significantly since 1991, and biological samples from the crime scene were re-examined. The results were a bombshell. The DNA evidence found at the scene did not match Ochoa or Springsteen. In fact, it didn't match any of the four suspects. With no conclusive physical evidence placing the men at the scene and the confessions now tainted, the case fell apart. All charges were eventually dismissed, and the four men were exonerated. The Austin yogurt shop murders had returned to square one. It was a devastating setback, and the case was once again officially unsolved. This turn of events left a trail of lingering questions that haunt the case to this day. If not those four men, then who was responsible for this horrific crime? Why was this particular yogurt shop targeted on that specific night? How many people were truly involved? Investigators have long believed that the complexity and brutality of the crime point to multiple attackers, and perhaps the most frustrating question of all, why has the unknown male DNA found at the scene never been matched to anyone in any criminal database? Is the killer or killers still out there, living freely, their identity a secret held for over 3 decades? Today, the Austin yogurt shop murders remains one of America's most infamous cold cases. The file is still open, but no suspects are currently charged. The unidentified DNA profile sits in a database, a silent witness waiting for a name. Law enforcement continues to accept and investigate tips, holding out hope that someone, somewhere, knows something that could finally break the case open. And with every new advance in forensic science, there's a renewed glimmer of hope that one day technology will provide the answer that human investigation has been unable to find. For the families of Jennifer, Sarah, Eliza, and Amy, the passage of time has not healed the wounds. Justice has been painfully delayed, but their fight for answers has never been forgotten. For bright young lives were cut short in the most brutal way imaginable. A community's sense of safety was shattered forever. And decades later, the truth of what happened inside that yogurt shop remains hidden in the shadows. This case is a stark reminder that behind every true crime story are real people, real families, and a pain that endures long after the headlines fade. Thank you for joining us at True Crimes AI. If you found this case as compelling as we do, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. We are dedicated to exploring these complex cases and keeping the search for truth alive. We'll see you next time.